But what I didn't appreciate at the time was that I was building all sorts of social capital with these thought leaders, people that I really admired. And so when I started doing training, and now I actually wanted to incorporate some of their stuff into paid training work. And so I reached out to them saying, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, sure, absolutely. Go nuts. It's all yours. Go for it. Right. In most cases, occasionally, if they're owned by a large publishing house, it was different. But just coming back to the point around the thing we're not talking enough about is there's still very much so there's this, we're in the era of instant gratification and sort of the belief that I should see a return immediately and or I should be given the opportunity to do this. And I think if you find something you're passionate about and you do the work that creates value for other people with sort of no strings attached, it doesn't take long, but it does take longer than you think for that to actually start paying dividends.
Chris, again, thank you so much for being here. I've chatted to you a few times, and so I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you, getting to know you a little bit differently. So for all our listeners and watchers, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on because I really love and admire the structure you've got to the show. I think the messaging, the vulnerability that guests are bringing is just so powerful. So thank you for that. It should be fun. Who am I? What do I do? So my name's Chris. I run a company called Actionable and another one called Catalyst. The sort of punchline or through line on all of it is that I help leadership consultants to sustain, improve the impact of the work that they do with their clients. It's about elevating really the industry of professional training and development from deliverers of great content to drivers of measurable, undeniable change impact. So that's the work.
Yeah. And that's how we connected. It's absolutely amazing.
Thanks.
All right. So now my personal favorite part is to go all the way back in time to young you. Tell us about that first dollar earned.
I love this question. I don't know how representative this is, but my first dollar earned was probably when I was, well, beyond, the obligatory lemonade stand, was when I was 12. I don't know if you remember these things, but they used to call them devil sticks, at least in North America. Boppers was another thing. They were like basically pieces of doweling with rubber tassels on the end.
Okay.
And you had two other sticks and you would like bounce the middle stick back and forth.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And people could do tricks. So I saw these at I think like a fair or a festival or something. And I thought I could probably make those. And I learned how to make them out of recycled inner tubes and wood doweling and gaffer tape. And recruited a couple friends, and we built this little business producing devil sticks and sort of capitalizing on this trend that was happening. And so built a little business, learned about supply and demand and where to source materials and profit and loss statements and all of that when I was 12. So that was where I got the entrepreneurial bug. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. I was like, okay, clearly you were born with this. So that's just spotting opportunity as a 12-year-old. Okay. So I am a parent of a pretty entrepreneurial minded boy. So what would you say to me, like when my boy gets to 12, like what did your parents say? Like how did they support you to make this business at the age of 12?
Yeah, it's funny because I've had people say, oh, your parents must have been entrepreneurs. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a corporate operations guy. So no, they hadn't done, to the best of my knowledge, really anything entrepreneurial. But they had, since as long as I can remember, they'd encourage us to, explore interests and hobbies and passions of whatever type that is. And I've since had conversations with my dad being like, you supported that thing, whatever that was. He's like, you were into it. So as long as it was safe and legal, we'd support you. Mm-hmm. And, when I think, this is a long time ago, right? We're going back 30 plus years that I was doing this. There was no Shopify. There was no Instagram. There were none of these digital tools that I think the entrepreneurial sort of bug gravitates people to or pulls people to. And I think it's interesting. Like my eldest is 8 and I'm watching him do things online. And I think it's interesting because it's so easy to look at kids in front of screens and assume that they're just wasting time. And sometimes that's true, but not always. Right. And if we can take, and I'm saying this to myself and future self 5 years from now, if we can take the time to sit in with them and understand what it is that they're trying to learn or do or accomplish, and, provide some insight into how they might, other tools they may explore, etc. Most of this stuff costs next to nothing. And if we can support them with the time and energy and acknowledge that a lot of these digital tools can be exactly that, really powerful tools, beyond, YouTube shorts, then I think we're doing them a service, and we're also continuing to build bonds with our kids as they get a little bit older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very refreshing take. I'm going to take that on board because I am struggling through that. All right, so back to young you. All right, you're 12. What did you learn through that experience? I mean, were you successful? Did you make some money, or did you, throw a lot of money at this thing, and was it a bust? Like, tell me.
We made some money, like nothing that I would say, yes, it was a $5,000 weekend. I think it sort of petered out. We had a school fair where we produced a bunch of the stuff for and then sold at the fair. And then, 12-year-old boys, I think the two friends of mine that were doing this with me, they were treating it as a project. I probably had grand aspirations for some global business. So it just sort of petered out. I think it was successful for what it was. And for me, it was my first foray into sales. I wouldn't have probably called it that at the time, but that was probably the biggest thing I took from that was you can manufacture stuff. Do people actually want it? And are you able to understand pain and need and all of that and speak that language? Right.
Wow. I wish I learned that at 12. I'm only learning it now. So only a few decades late, but we'll all get there in our own time. Exactly. All right. Well, that is super cool. All right. So what came after that for you? What else did you do in your later teen years beyond 12?
Any job that would hire me. So I worked, okay. So I continued to do some entrepreneurial stuff through a program called Junior Achievement that they had at the time. So I was doing that in more of a structured environment, learned about business roles and systems and that sort of that world, balance sheet, P&L type stuff, which was really useful. But I didn't really pursue anything entrepreneurial again until university. So during my high school years, I was taking any job that would pay me. So I worked at a library, I worked at a water bottling factory, I worked, cutting grass, babysitting, the standard stuff you do. Worked at a video store. I was a mascot at a grocery store, like wearing a big costume, walking around the grocery store. Like basically anywhere that would pay me, I would take the job. So.
Wow. Okay. So what drove you to do that? Like, why did you want to work so much?
I liked money. I think, I was one of the first kids to have a cell phone of my age. It was, I liked the freedom that came from, having a paycheck that wasn't reliant on the bank of mom and dad. Mm-hmm. I was terrible at saving it. I really didn't figure that out until much, much, much later in life. So the primary was the freedom that cash enables. And I think I just also like learning different environments and cultures and roles. And so being able to sort of, what's it like to work at a video store? Half the people listening to this don't remember what a video store was, but video rental store was
it was a thing.
It was a thing.
So cool. How many hours did you waste in there? Like that's the equivalent of scrolling through YouTube, but just going through box by box. Okay. Wow. So much. I'm always amazed to hear that. I thought I was like a scrappy little kid, but I often speak to people and think, wow, I should have done more. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So high school, you said college. What did you study? What did you do in college?
Film production.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, from a very young age, I wanted to be sort of the next Cameron Crowe or Steven Spielberg. I wanted to make movies with heart, to told the story. And so I'd messed around with, the home video camera, et cetera, in high school. I think that was part of the draw to the job at the Rogers Video. Mm-hmm. And then university, I did 1 year in a more traditional sort of e-com program and said, no, this is not for me. And so I moved out to Western Canada and went to film school, learning how to make movies, which was awesome.
Wow. Did you finish that? Like you stayed
Yeah.
throughout? Okay. And did you do any work in the industry?
No. So two things happened. I've got my name on a couple credits for film festival films, but never in the commercial sphere. Two things happened. One, I started to realize by about third year that they weren't teaching us anything about the business of movie making. It was all about the craft, not about the business. And that was going to be a gap. Because what I started to realize too is that if you wanted to work in film and actually make movies sort of following your vision, you could spend 20 or 30 years working your way up the ranks and maybe get to a place where you had some creative license. Mm-hmm. Or you could go make money somewhere else and come back and finance your own films. And so naive 21-year-old Chris said, I think I could probably be pretty good at making money. Maybe I'll go do that, go make my billions, and then come back and finance my own films, like a Jeffrey Katzenberg sort of approach. Mm-hmm. That was one component. In parallel to that, making movies is expensive, even student films. And so I had to find summer jobs that could finance this hobby of making movies. And I'd taken the best salaried positions I could. But when you're a kid, I mean, particularly back in what would that be? In the early aughts, it was $20 an hour was really good. And then I'd have this $30,000 film to finance going, that's a lot of hours. Mm-hmm. So I got offered a job selling Cutco knives. And I loved it. I was one of the weirdos who I started doing it. I was good at it. I started making money. They recognize you. But I also just really enjoyed the sales conversations, like just sitting down in people's kitchens and I don't know, just talking to strangers was awesome. Again, like I said, a little odd. So what happens in Cutco, like a lot of companies, is that when you're good at sales, they offer you an opportunity to teach other people how to do sales. And so as I entered my final year of film school, I was also offered the opportunity to run a branch office, which was like a 4-month summer placement thing. And I did really well at that, and I loved it. So when I graduated from film school, I took a full-time year-round role running an office back in Ontario, teaching people how to sell knives. And for a while, it was really good, really good. We were one of the top offices in North America. I was making lots of money. And then that success, like I was 22, I think at the time, suddenly I knew it all, right? Because I was making real money.
Of course.
Yeah. And I went down in hindsight, pretty dark path in regards to how I showed up, the type of person I was in relationships, just very, very self-absorbed and very egotistical, narcissistic, you might even say. And then shockingly, the whole business fell apart because no one wants to work for that kind of person. So that was sort of the beginning of a fairly major life transformation.
Mm. Wow, that is some great self-awareness, honestly.
Not at the time, but
yeah, not at the time, but sometimes you just need to walk that path to then come out the other side with some other knowledge. So that's okay. That's really, good self-awareness, I think. Okay, so that happened. The company or your branch, right, is not doing well. People are leaving you. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. So how long were you on this path, and when did you get your wake-up call? You said it was the start of a transition or transformation.
Yeah. I mean, there was a version of rock bottom there where the business was going south for probably 8 months before I was willing to admit that it was actually falling apart. And I literally got locked out of my office. Like I don't know how many months behind on rent. I was living in a really crappy apartment thing, and just the whole thing was just pretty bad. And it was when I got locked out of my office, I'm like, okay, my parents who were sort of watching this, so I'm in Vancouver at the time, they're in Ontario, they're watching this from a distance. They they did what parents do. They came across the country and sat down with me, and I'll picture it forever. I had this ridiculous desk, this massive piece of oak desk, because of course I needed that in my like oversized suit. It was ridiculous. And they sat across the desk from me and they slid a check, like physical check across the table. It was $600. And they said, this is it. This is basically the end for us to support you. This is enough money for a plane ticket home, which it was at the time. Or you can do whatever you want with it, but this is it. If you choose to come home, you can have a year rent-free in the basement to basically, I mean, they didn't say it, but get my shit together was basically what they were trying to suggest. And I said no, because, I was that guy. Mm-hmm. And then 3 days later I went, well, what else am I going to do? And so then I went back with my tail between my legs a little bit and said, okay. Mm-hmm. And I moved home and curled up in the basement, sort of licking my wounds, right? Like when business has been going great, it's pretty much the worst thing you can imagine as a 22-year-old is having to move home, right? And rely on mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And they were exceptional about it. And I'll always be exceptionally grateful to them. So I'm in the basement. My dad's office was also in the basement. My dad wasn't home a lot. He was working a lot. But his office is there. And the reason this matters is because his bookshelf was full of business books, mostly biographies from like the 80s and 90s. So there's, Izzy Asper and picture Jack Welch and these, Lee Iacocca, like these, sort of titans of industry from the 80s and 90s. And because I had very little else to do, I started reading some of these books. And I was really enamored with a few different things. One, the sort of the humanity of these stories. Two, the dawning realization that at the time, pretty much anything you wanted an answer to was in a book somewhere. You just needed to find the book. And so I went down this rabbit hole where I started reading 4 or 5 business books a week. And I was reading them for the sake of consumption. I felt like I would get better if I just sort of housed more information in my head. But nothing was changing because, shockingly, Candace, you actually have to do something with the information for it to create any sort of impact.
Yeah, who knew?
Yeah. And that realization that it's not about knowledge consumption, it's about application of knowledge that creates value was 20 plus years ago. And it was the turning point for me that has shaped the last 2 decades of my life, because I became obsessed with this idea of taking ideas that exist out there and turning them into lasting behavior change. I can probably stop my monologue there, but that sort of takes us to my mid-20s. Oh.
Wow. You didn't need to stop. I was enthralled. So I was just thinking, oh, you are a very good storyteller. So that is definitely a great skill. But okay, yes, some questions that were going through in my mind. So you're sitting there kind of, like you say, licking your wounds, not feeling very good about yourself. You start reading these books. I'm always curious because, there's so many different paths we can walk down when we start doing that. You could have read the books thinking, well, I'm never going to be like these people. Yep. But you didn't. You read the books thinking, okay, how can I actually absorb this, do something different and change my life? So I'm just always trying to get into the psychology of people and why we make those decisions. So, what happened? Was there a time or some thinking? When did you start applying it? And then what was the next step for you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, I mentioned some of these characters from the 80s and 90s that were not particularly nice people as humans, right? And I think that was the dawning realization. Like I was seeing myself in parts of how these characters showed up in their stories, and I wasn't super thrilled with that. Right. It wasn't an aspirational character. It was it's kind of ugly. Mm-hmm. And so that was a piece of it, was the dawning realization that I had become someone that I didn't really want to be. And that I'd probably slipped into that through a series of behavior changes over the course of time. And that if I wanted to get out of it, I probably needed to engage in a series of behavior changes to get out of it. Right. People don't just become something else over time. And that That I was aware of. And so I decided that I was going to make this commitment where for a year, I was actually going to slow down my rate of reading. I would read one book each week, and I would take one idea from each of those books and I would put it into practice in my own life. The idea was to pick something small, behavioral, attitudinal that I could practice on a regular basis. And over the year, sort of stack 52 new habits. The hypothesis being that if I could make 52 small behavior or attitudinal changes over the course of a year, I could deliberately reinvent how I showed up in the world. Okay. I knew that I was never going to do that or stick with that because I have a habit of being a shiny object person, or have in the past. Still do. People that know me going, no, Chris, still do. So I needed some accountability. And so what I did was I emailed, at the time it was probably 30 people, like whoever was in my Gmail or whatever I had at the time. I said, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And what I would love from you, if you're open to it, is I'm going to send you every Tuesday. I don't know why Tuesday, but every Tuesday, I'm going to send you the summary of the book I read and the thing that I'm thinking about applying. I don't care if you read it. All I want you to do is to call me out on it if you don't get that from me on a Tuesday, because I just need that social accountability. I didn't say social accountability, but I needed that peer pressure.
Yes.
To keep me on track. And it was kind of cool because the very first book that I put into practice on this was this book with a very cheesy title called The 1 Minute Millionaire. There was this idea in the back of the book where it's the book's great. I don't think it's as cheesy as the title sounds, but it was that most of us have a warped perception of wealth, both the creation of it and the utilization of it. And if that might be true for you, which I was starting to realize it was because I'd been living like a millionaire on not a millionaire's income when I was running this business, maybe you should talk to people that have achieved the level of financial success that you aspire to. Novel idea, but it went a step further. And this is what really got me, was that it wasn't just you should go talk to people. It was, and here's the 12 questions you can ask, and here's how you might reach out to them, and here's where you could find them in your network. It was just so laid out. And I thought two things. One, I can do that. And I did. And two, why don't more books have this level of granularity around the implementation? So I reached out. I ended up having, 10 or 12 conversations with bona fide sort of multimillionaires, decamillionaires. It reshaped my thinking around wealth creation. Most of them showed up driving domestic cars, wearing jeans, right? They weren't in a limo with chomping a cigar, as I might have 3 cell phones, right? But that's what was in my head. Like, that's what I thought money meant, right?
Yeah.
I got a couple job offers out of those conversations. I ended up working for a great guy in a marketing firm. So that was huge. It changed my life and perception. And it gave me a framework to use for these summaries that I was going to write on a weekly basis, which was, let's make it incredibly practical and granular around how to do the thing. Right? Yeah. So to answer in a very circuitous route, that was the sort of shift for me, was I don't want to be those guys. I need to make some deliberate changes in my life.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very eye-opening. I think I need to read that book. That sounds, very cheesy title, but it seems the book is really good. So
here's the thing I will say, Candace. Actionablebooks.com is still around. It's a free service. There's over 1,100 summaries on that site. I wrote about 400 of them, and then other people have written since. I don't think there's anything special about that book. I think the right book at the right time for the right person is what unlocks something. And so that's part of why Actionable Books continue. Like, it's not even active, but I continue to pay to keep it running, because I think it's really important for people to be able to peruse, find the thing they need, and then go deep, then go to the book, right? The summary doesn't replace the book, but you got to find the right book at the right time. Because I'm sure if I read that book now, it wouldn't be nearly as impactful as it was. And there's other books that I threw away 8 years ago that since I've read and gone, oh my gosh, that's so profound. It's got to meet us where we're at.
Yeah. That's actually so true. I recently, I'm just actually finishing up Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, right.
The first time I'm like judging myself of, why have I not read this book before? But I think to your point, it's like it's hit me. It just came to me at the right time. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, my kids have to listen to this book. It's really good. But anyway, still like, why didn't you read this 20 years ago?
Yeah, the cash flow. I think it's called Cash Flow, not the book. There's a board game called Cash Flow.
Yes, that he made. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that was impactful for us as well as a couple when my wife and I were first together.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We actually ran that in my first organization that I worked in. And I didn't realize, but yeah, that was the board game that we helped people make business decisions with. So yeah, very cool. All right. So where are we? So you were working for one of the guys in marketing, right?
Yep.
So was that a full-time job? Okay. All right. And then, so what happened from there?
Yeah, so I was with Chris and Paul. It was a small shop out of Burlington, Ontario. It was a really fabulous experience, and I was doing sales basically for them and enjoying that. And they gave me a lot of free reign, probably more than you could have used at the time, because then I was also moonlighting, building out this book summary thing that I thought there was no business model, but I thought I'm passionate about this. Mm-hmm. There's probably something I could do with this to make money. It turns out there was not, but punchline, spoiler alert. Damn. But so I got to a place where I was spending about half my time on actionable books, and eventually I got fired from that marketing job, and rightly so. Because I had tried to game the system. I basically found a contract that paid on an ongoing basis that covered my salary plus like 30%. And thought, not knowing really how business truly operates, I was like, well, I'm good. This is my employment insurance. I'm here forever because I'm generating, 30% more than they're paying me, which of course is ridiculous because you can't have a salesperson generating 130% of their salary in hindsight, but at the time. So they let me go, and that was a shock. Shouldn't have been, but it was. And like it should, again, I don't put anything on them. This was entirely Chris becoming a little self-absorbed again. But it forced me to figure out what I was doing with these book summaries and if there was something that I would turn this into a business around. Mm-hmm. What it turned into was training, because people wanted more than what was in the book summaries. They didn't want to pay Pat Lencioni to come in and train them, but they wanted me to do a mashup of the 5 dysfunctions and start with why and something by John Maxwell and turn it into a bit of a leadership cocktail and come and run training workshops. And I liked that. I'd been a trainer when I was running the Cutco office. I was teaching and training. And so I liked training and had a lot of passion for the content, and I can be engaging. And so I built a little business in Toronto where I was doing training mostly for small and mid-sized companies. Most of the content was other people's content blended. And I liked it. I was good at it. It paid well. And so it was a good little thing. I did that while continuing to produce these summaries, and that built a following of consultants and trainers, because a lot of coaches, consultants, trainers are also the people that read these books. Mm-hmm. And so they were subscribing to the newsletter. I would write occasionally about my facilitation. And then I had a training client, who came to me and said, Chris, we loved your last session. So thank you very much. We'd like to have you come back in. I said, great. What do you want me to talk about? Like, no, same stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. So who's it for? Like, same team. Like, we just did that like 6 months ago. Like, I know they loved it so much. We just want to do it again. And I had this the bottom of my stomach dropped out going, oh, wow, our definitions of success are very different here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I couldn't really figure it out because I was so wired towards the application of information from when I was doing the book summaries that I thought, really? Like, this is what you want is edutainment? And in that case, that client did want edutainment. But when I started talking to other clients, they wanted application of learning. They wanted to know that the training was having an impact. And I came to realize that there was nothing really in the training and development, the $300 billion industry that we operate in. There was really nothing to shine a light on the behavior change impact of training programs. I thought, well, or if it is, it's extremely complicated. And I thought, well, this seems silly. So I hired a guy off Twitter to build the,
Wow.
I don't even want to call it MVP, right? Yeah. I don't want to call it MVP, but like this really basic initial version of what's now a piece of tech that we have called the Habit Builder, which was around helping individuals take a new idea and turn it into lasting behavior change. What I'd been doing on the book summaries. I'd also become really interested in behavior change, behavior science. I'd read everything by BJ Fogg, Charles Duhigg, Csikszentmihalyi, all sorts of well-researched people in and around the behavior change space. And so I used that information and I used my own experience with book summaries and I used the needs of the clients and I built this piece of tech. I added it onto my training programs at no cost. The consultants, coaches, and facilitators that were following the book summaries got wind of it and said, I want that. Can I have that? How do I get that? And so I don't know how you get that. And so I've messed around with different pricing models and eventually ended up on a licensing model where they could license it and use it in their work, which was awesome. Second stream of income, except Toronto's a big, small city. And so now I was sort of competing with myself because I'd be talking to a prospect around my training and touting the benefits of the Habit Builder. And they go, well, that other consultant's got that too. And I go, this is ridiculous. So I took a look at it. I had that sort of, in the mirror moment of you like facilitating and you're good at it, but you're not world class at it. And where you can be truly, there was two things that I wanted. I wanted ultimate, like infinite scalability of impact. And I wanted work that would allow me to be geographically free, i.e. travel more. Neither of those things came from me doing facilitation work. Both of those things came from me supporting consultants and trainers in helping them prove the impact of their work. Mm-hmm. And so that was 2012. And that was the primary thrust into what is now Actionable.
Mm. Okay. And to differentiate yourself, I think, there's many facilitators. And as you said, in this huge field that we work in, there's really nothing. And especially in 2012, I mean, maybe other things have come out now, but in 2012, there was nothing to measure impact,
No. Well, and that almost
that I can think of.
No. And that sounds like a great thing. It wasn't. It was too vanguard, right? Like, if I go back to my early self, there's value in being innovative, but only so long as you can anchor it to something that people are comfortable with and know. And we were doing stuff, and the way that I was positioning it and talking about it was so out there that pretty much universally people were like, this is brilliant, great idea. And also pretty much universally, they weren't ready to pay for it. The consultants were, because they got it. That small percentage of consultants that 10 years ago, 12 years ago, understood the importance and value of proving impact. But we would have died. Like, honestly, we just sort of ground it out for 8 years, sort of year to year, just trying to make this thing work. And then COVID happened. And, for all the horrific ripple effects of COVID, it was really good for our business. Because suddenly the entire learning and development industry woke up and said, we need to demonstrate the value of the work that we do, because HR in general is now in the spotlight, not for reasons related to training, but they're now being asked for data on all things and they don't have data around this. Mm-hmm. And so for the first time in a decade, we had consultants coming to us saying, our clients are insisting that we have a way to prove impact and we don't have a way to prove impact. And I hear you might have a way to do that. How does that work? Mm-hmm. So that was really big for us.
Okay. Wow. 8 years to running a business. That one saying always goes in my mind all the time is like, takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Right. So that is you. So 8 years of just going, like, how did you survive for 8 years? And, how did you keep going with this business that I think, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your brain, but I think you just knew you were onto something feels like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of bullheadedness. Like I still can't believe that as an industry, we went as long as we did without a way to, like, there's no other sector that gets away with this of not knowing, like marketing in the 50s, maybe, but nothing in the last 30 or 40 years where money gets poured into it and we have no visibility as to whether it's creating impact or not. So I couldn't get rid of that loop in my head of like, this has to change. Like, people have to wake up to the fact that this is a problem. There's a little bit of helpful echo chamber of the consultants that I was talking to fully got it. And so they were playing back to me the importance of the work that we were doing. And they were buying and licensing. And I have so much gratitude and give so much credit to the consultants that signed on with us in those early days, because it was really hard to sell. And so they were going out on a limb. They were forking over money to be a part of our community, to learn, as I was learning in real time, what was working and what wasn't. And it was very much like, sort of the band of merry misfits, where we were the odd ducks in the L&D space. And they stuck with me. Like, I've got some consultants that have been with me now for well over a decade, and I just have so much admiration and gratitude for them sticking with it. So they basically financed the dream while we were going through that. I took on a lot of debt. I sold some early equity to some of those really all-in consultants, and just whatever it took to keep the lights on. Yeah. Did what it took.
Yeah, tell me about the guy you found on Twitter. Because was Twitter a big thing then?
It was early days. No, it was pretty early days, but it was.
Okay, yeah, because I feel like you're pioneering there as well.
Yeah, that was the thing too, is that whole idea of the business being something that could scale infinitely and that I could do from anywhere led us to be fairly early adopters of a lot of technology. So like I was a beta user of Zoom years and years before it, because we were using Skype for business calls before that. And then Zoom came out, and for technical geeky reasons I won't get into, it was a major improvement over Skype. I was living on an island in Panama, and Skype wouldn't work at all. It was too heavy from a bandwidth standpoint. Zoom worked. It was awesome. So yeah, so Twitter was one of those things. I was just curious about it. I do miss those early days of Twitter, because it really was like human connection and problem solving and fun. So I just threw a thing out saying, hey, I'm looking to do this thing. Does anyone know anyone? And someone said, oh, is this guy Sean in Ottawa? Do you care where he's based? I'm like, look around. I'm like, nope. And so Sean and I got on a call, and we chatted through what it could be. And then he built an early, I think he charged me like $1,000 for the first version of something. And Sean still works here, which is pretty fabulous. Cool. So,
yeah. All right. Tell me about Panama. Were you living on an island in Panama?
We were, San Cristobal. So great theory, infinitely scalable, do this from anywhere. Except in 2014, I've been at it for a couple of years, and we're not making any money, so it's not scaling. And I'm still working out of my apartment in Toronto. And were we married at that point? Oh, she's gonna kill me. Yeah, we were married at that point. New wife said, maybe we want to test this. Maybe we want to go somewhere. I said, yeah, great idea. So we went. All told, we spent about 3.5 years living, quote unquote, nomadically. So we were in Spain for a bit, lived in a cave. It sounds more rustic than it was. Cave in Spain. We came back. We went to Panama for 4 months. We came back. We went to the south of Spain for a bit. Started doing a lot of trips to Australia, and sort of just bounced around. Really, I needed somewhere with an internet connection. And that was about it. That was our criteria. So, and at the time, people were like, oh, it's so luxurious to move to Spain. I'm like, no, we moved there because it's cheap. Right? Like, it was so much cheaper than Toronto. Yes. So that was a big draw. And then Panama, same thing. Like, fish tacos for $1, and they're really good.
Yeah. Good. Sounds amazing. Yeah. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about this 3.5 years nomadic life. There's got to be, 3 years worth of stories at least. It sounds amazing.
I think the thing that it gave me the most appreciation for, so you move to Spain, it's 6 hours ahead of Toronto. It's a reset on daily rhythms. And so I hadn't really appreciated that. I mean, I knew there was a time difference, but I hadn't really appreciated that I would have the opportunity to restructure my whole day. We didn't have any kids at the time, so a lot more autonomy over our schedules. And I found that really fascinating that I could, it turns out that I really like bike riding in the morning and, having a long lunch and then starting my workday at 2:00 in the afternoon served perfectly at the time. And then we went to Panama and I said, well, it's roughly the same time zone, but so what? Like I could still take control over my calendar. And I became really interested in lifestyle design. Like how do you organize your day to allow yourself to lean into natural rhythms? Yeah. And I found interesting. I mean, this is, again, it's been 14 years of playing with this. Is that right? I don't know, 10 plus years, whatever, a while of playing with this lifestyle design, that it changes as well, right? Like I was never an early riser. Kids came along and I realized that I actually really I'm able to be a better dad and a better boss and a better partner with my clients when I've got some deep productive work done before the day starts. So now I get up at 4, not because I'm some, ice bath maniac, but because I'm paying very close attention to my rhythms. And I know that 4 to 7 of deep work is actually the best way that I can show up for myself and the people around me.
Yeah, I totally get that. I have also started waking up 4:45, not quite 4.
Nice.
And I got an ice bath for Christmas.
Amazing.
I guess now I'm an ice bath maniac.
So good. I do actually go every other week, but yeah. People hear 4 a.m. and they're like, oh, you're one of those tech bros.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, I wouldn't do it if it didn't serve, right? So
yes, exactly. Yeah. No, I'll sleep when I feel like sleeping as well. Yeah. So, all right. Oh, so good. Okay, so now you're doing this work. You grew since COVID. You're growing, expanding. Yeah. I mean, So tell us what's next, and then I do want to ask you a couple of questions.
For sure. So it's been really exciting. Actionable, AI, all the things that have been happening in the world in the last few years. Some people, exhausting would be another word for exciting. But there's so much happening and we're able to be at the forefront because we had a really strong foundation. So Actionable is working with larger and larger organizations. When I first started, we worked with really anyone who called themselves a consultant or facilitator. As the technologies become more sophisticated, it really best serves those that are at sort of $500,000 in annual revenue and up. And we work with global players. AI enables us to tell an impact story more richly and more quickly. So being able to take the data from the habit builder and share it in a way that business leaders get, right? Where it used to be an HR L&D thing. Now it's being able to say the behavior change that this training program is driving will positively impact or not these KPIs in 6 to 9 months time. That becomes a really powerful business tool. Mm-hmm. And so we're attracting larger, more business-minded consulting firms. Oh. What that did, though, as we realized about 2 years ago that Actionable was really best suited for $500,000 and up, we made that move. It was the right thing for the business. And it left a hole for me because Actionable, that makes sense for. Chris really likes working with earlier stage consultants. And so on a bit of a whim, I said, I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to call it Catalyst. And Catalyst is going to be for consultants that are doing less than $200,000 in annual revenue to help them get to $500,000. How do you build proper lead flow? It's business mechanics. So it's how do we build proper lead flow? How do you structure your offer so it's attractive to the right buyer? How do you deliver that in a way that doesn't mean double your income, double your hours, And I love it. So I do that. A day a week is spent on Catalyst. I work with a group of really switched on consultants there, take on a few clients at various spots throughout the year. But the combination of those two things leave me very fulfilled because I get to work with top end of town and deeply passionate earlier stage consultants. And it's good. Keeps me young.
Yes, that is fantastic. I love that. And I love that you said, it just keeps you so fulfilled because, running a business is tough. And that's actually the one question I have. So people listening here will be in a career in corporate or thinking of running their own business. So it's really about building a career, like work that you actually find fulfilling and joyful. And like, Monday comes around and you're like, yeah, Monday. So what do you, in your opinion, what is something we're not talking enough about when it comes to building this work career that lights us up?
I actually had a note on this. Let me find that. So what I wrote down here was we're not talking enough about the need to create value before being recognized as valuable. I think a lot of us, whether we're inside or outside an organization, there's still a desire to be chosen, to be picked, and then given an opportunity to shine. And I'm a big fan of Seth Godin and Seth Godin's work. And Seth's been talking about this for I don't know, decades, about we need to choose ourselves. And there, again, it sounds a bit cliche, but it has never been easier than it is now to be innovative inside your role, to create outsized value, so that when you go to your boss to ask for a raise or to ask for the promotion, or you want to launch a thing, you've got a built-in fan base because you have been giving and providing value ever since. Mm-hmm. When I think back, and it was, I wish I could say this was a great strategy. It wasn't. It was just something I thankfully did. When I started writing those book summaries, I started sending an email to the author of the book who I just summarized. And it was the same template every time. It said, quite literally, it would say, "Hey, Candace, read your book, loved your book, wrote about your book, hyperlink. Just wanted to say thanks, Chris. Keep up the great work, Chris." And I would send that to every single author after I'd written the summary. And again, just seemed like the right thing to do. Plus, I think I probably didn't want to get sued in case there was any sort of copyright thing. And most would write back, and most were quite grateful. But what I didn't appreciate at the time was that I was building all sorts of social capital with these thought leaders, people that I really admired. And so when I started doing training, and now I actually wanted to incorporate some of their stuff into paid training work that I did realize would probably cross some infringement stuff if I didn't talk. And so I reached out to them saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And they're like, "Sure, absolutely. Go nuts. It's all yours. Go for it." Right. In most cases, occasionally, if they're owned by a large publishing house, it was different. But that, just coming back to the point around the thing we're not talking enough about is there's still very much so, we're in the era of instant gratification and sort of the belief that I should see a return immediately, and or I should be given the opportunity to do this. And I think if you find something you're passionate about and you do the work that creates value for other people with sort of no strings attached, it doesn't take long, but it does take longer than you think for that to actually start paying dividends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a powerful lesson. I feel like I need to write that down. Is there anything that I have not asked you that you want to share before we wrap up with the final question?
The other thing that I wrote down here that I was like, oh, that's good, was there was a shift that I went through, that point where the client said, "Can you come back in and do the same thing for the same people?" I made a decision in hindsight to move from solving a client need to solving an industry need. Mm-hmm. If I'd listened to the clients, I would have continued to deliver the same content. And what I realized, if I'd followed that sort of red line path, is I would have ended up being commoditized further and further and further because I was really being paid for the entertainment value of what I was doing. I would have been way more beholden to the whims of the economy and all of that. By choosing to not focus on the needs of a specific client, but to tackle an industry challenge, it gave me runway on the problem, because now this is a big problem. It gave potential enterprise value, like there's something there beyond simply solving for company X, and it allowed me to attract people to the mission more easily, because it wasn't just around making money or solving for that client. It was around, there's an injustice in our, injustice is a loaded word, but there's something that needs to be changed or fixed. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something else for people that are considering doing their own thing. By all means, start with solving client pains. It'll be the fastest path to cash. But if you can look for trends or commonalities or things that make you, particularly as an outsider, go, wait, what? What? Why is it that way? Don't assume that, well, now I'm preaching, but what I found to be really helpful is not to assume that just because it's being done that way means that it should. It usually just means that most of the people in that space were raised in that space, and that's normal, right? Mm-hmm. So there's opportunity to disrupt.
Yes. Yes. I feel like you are speaking to me. So, yeah, that's really good advice. It's think bigger. And I often say that, like, the worst thing you can say to me is we're doing it this way because we've always done it this way. Yeah. But I think sometimes you're just in a bubble that you don't even know. Yeah. It's the status quo. You're not even aware of it. So yeah, that's something I'm focused on hugely, is bursting out of the L&D bubble. So even my LinkedIn, I'm trying to like reach out to marketing people, copywriters, nice. Sales people, all the different fields, just to break my own bubble. Because I've been in this field forever, since I started. Sure. I was in recruitment for 8 months and that was it. Now in L&D for the rest. So yeah, that's very good advice. Okay, let's wrap up with the final question, going all the way back to young you, however old, your 12-year-old self or in your 20s, doesn't matter. Yep. What would you thank yourself for doing back then?
My buddy Nathan Barry, who runs a company called Kit, had this great, it was literally this week, he had a quote where someone called him delusionally optimistic. Delusionally optimistic. And that's what came to mind for me when you asked the question. I want to thank my 20-year-old self for being delusionally optimistic. I think if I had the knowledge then that I do now, I probably wouldn't have gone down the path that I did, and certainly in the way that I did it, which is not to say for a second that I have a regret around it. I'm just so grateful for the fact that I dove in without doing deep research into what this was actually going to take. I was really fortunate to be surrounded by people that supported that delusional optimism. I didn't get a lot. I got a little bit, but not a lot. Like I hear stories and I feel so sad for people that are surrounded by people telling them, no, you can't do that. So I was really fortunate in that regard. I think that's incredible to overcome that. But either way, I think if we can just stop overanalyzing, like, yes, all the information is at our fingertips, but we don't need to know everything in order to make the first step and to go down that path. If you can find, and again, I'm saying this to my previous self, the fact that you found stuff you were passionate about and it changed, and then you pursued it through that delusional optimism lens, that's beautiful. And I thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. Chris, how can people work with you? What do you offer the world?
Sure.
We've spoken a lot about it, but yes, in a nutshell.
So 3 lenses. If you're an earlier stage consultant, or if you're thinking about launching your consulting practice, Catalyst, I do intakes at various times throughout the year, usually a couple people at a time. So the best bet would be, it would be literally just ping me in regards to that on LinkedIn or email. I'm chris@actionable.co. So that's Catalyst, and just put Catalyst in the subject line, and then I can get you sorted and explain what that looks like. So that's number 1. Number 2, if you're a more established consulting and training firm, then we have something called the Impact Consulting Program, which gives you access to our tech, but also the community of like-minded practitioners and coaching around how to shift your value proposition from I deliver content to I drive change. So that's the ICP. Mm-hmm. Same thing. Email me, put ICP in the subject line, and we could talk about that. And if you're in L&D in-house, we've only recently, as in the last 2 years, started working with organizations directly to bring proof of impact to their internal programs. So we're not back to the drawing board. We've supported over 7,000 programs, but for us to be the lead on it is relatively new. So if you like the idea of being a partner in that and want to bring proof of impact to your programs, again, you got to email me or find me on LinkedIn. There's nothing to buy online anywhere. But what I would say for everybody is, if you want to go deeper on the behavior change stuff, we have something called the Behavior Change Toolkit, and how you can bring proof of impact to your programs. Just go to toolkit, all one word, .actionable, trailblazer.co. That'll take you to a self-assessment and then into the toolkit. It's all free. And that's probably a good place to start.
Fantastic. And we'll link everything in descriptions and all of that stuff so people can go grab the link. Chris, thank you. This has been so good to get to know you on this different level. So it's been an absolute wonderful hour for me. Any final words or anything you want to leave us with before we say bye?
I really appreciate you and the space you hold. I don't think I've gone quite that deep into my previous self before. So thank you for that. And for everyone listening, the fact that you're thinking about this, about sort of, not this as in my stuff, but this as in Candace's stuff. Maybe that's a little voice whispering that it's time to do something new. So there you go. Pursue it. And if I can help in any way, let me know.
Yeah. Thank you so much.